Hi, it's Elizabeth, and today I'm going to do something that I've never done really on social before. I'm going to talk about a political thing that's happening because I read an article yesterday or the day before that was published on the New York Times. Now hold with me, right? Because everybody just sort of New York Times, don't. This is a medical article. So, if you have seen me speak or had a session with me or have met me, I may have shared with you that I have Crohn's disease. And I was diagnosed at 19, and I've had this really wild medical journey. I've spent a year of my life physically hospitalized. I have had multiple emergency transfers. I've had 5 major surgeries, a zillion and one complications, but that's not what I'm going to talk about today. And I'm going to try to make this short and sweet because it's really super important. So the article is titled, "It's Just a Virus," the ER told him. Days later, he was dead. And it was published on October 5th. So in March of this year, May of this year, I was also hospitalized in March, but in May of this year, this is my story, almost down to the lab values. And I'm going to try really, really hard to keep it together because this is so important. So with my Crohn's, I also deal with a lot of other complications, including EOE and gastroparesis, among other things. I've had a complication of pancreatitis induced by medication in the past. So like pain, issues with my stomach, etc., not a new thing for me. And I have to be actually dying. Joke here is I think I might have been in May. And I didn't really realize how close until I read this article about Sam. So I just think it's really important that we take 2 seconds and talk about what happened to Sam. So Sam very quickly started not feeling well, not presenting, not being able to keep food down, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he's away, I think it was school, so he's communicating with his family via text, and he goes to the emergency room, and they street him, and then he's a bounce back. So he actually goes back to the ER. That's really critical in this story. That's also what happened to me. However, when he was bounced back, instead of doing the things that even the system itself was saying, hey, this kid needs to be worked up for sepsis, they streeted him again. And they did it without antibiotics, and he died. And it happened in the span of like 3 or 4 days. So if you want to learn about Sam's story, that's his journey. I don't know this family. I just read this story and started crying. So in May of this year, I ended up being, I went to an emergency room locally, and they streeted me. Even though I had a heart rate over 150, my blood pressure was through the roof, I was in agonizing pain and not really able to answer questions well, but still coherent, right? Still able to give my name, date of birth, place, et cetera, et cetera. The next day, so that was, kind of middle of the week, the following day, within about 12 hours, I had been home by myself. My daughter was at school. And apparently throughout the day, I became sicker and sicker and sicker. And I didn't know what was happening. And my daughter got home from school, and she found me in a closet trying to go to the bathroom. And I was disoriented. I had stepped in dog poop and didn't know it. And I was vomiting and really sick. But The scary part of all of this is I was so disorientated that so my daughter and my husband comes home, he's trying to figure out, like, is this a regular thing? And I'm telling them I do not want to go to the hospital, right? Because I get streeted all the time. Like, I'm a pain patient and I have that above my head. And whether that's good or bad, we can argue about that on a different conversation. But the moral of this story is my husband and my daughter called my mom, who came over. We live a couple miles from one another on the North Shore of Massachusetts. And she took one look at me and said, okay, she's either having a stroke or she has swelling in her brain. So I didn't know what the day was. I didn't know so I wasn't orientated for person, place, or time. I say 48 hours, my mom says 72. But the long story short is that Exeter Hospital in Exeter, New Hampshire saved my life. They got me to the emergency room. I was transferred via Amesbury EMTs. Shout out, you guys are flipping the best. This is the time we know each other, or you know who I am and may have even transported me before. And on the way to the emergency room, I have very vague memories going into this period. And then once I get to the ER, I have no memory. And that lasts at least 48 hours. I have no memory. So in the ambulance ride, I started to panic because they were asking me who the president was. And I could see what he looked like in my brain, but it couldn't make my mouth say it. So if you want to know more about that, or you have questions, or you're a fellow warrior in Crohn's or other autoimmune invisible illnesses, I would love to connect with you because, gosh almighty, it takes a village. But now to the political. So there's something called the 80-20 principle. And the 80-20 principle from a human lens is that we have to be reminded that society's strength exists in how much the 80 stands up for the 20. Because at any point in our lives, we could be the 20. And that's what I'm here to say today. And as a registered Republican, this isn't about anything other than the ability for people to get access to safe, affordable, up-to-date, and accessible to them healthcare. Because I live 45 minutes from Boston and I am treated at the Mass General Crohn's and Colitis Center. And that is probably the only reason I am still alive today. And if I lived anywhere else in the country where I didn't have access to world-class hospitals that were cutting-edge research facilities with cutting-edge doctors willing to take me on as a complicated, literal walking negative outcome for those in the medical community watching along. So just think about that. Think about when in your life may you have been in the 20. And it doesn't have to be financial, right? It doesn't have to be. It could be anything. It could be housing insecurity. It could be healthcare insecurity. It could be a divorce. It could be a child going through a crisis. It could be an unexpected, very expensive medical diagnosis when you are 19 years old and in college. I'm not sharing that to shame anyone or point a finger. It's rather to shine a lens and a light and say, hey, I'm here. I am that. And I'm alive because the people at Exeter Hospital didn't street me. They literally brought in infectious disease, I spent 5 days in the hospital. I was discharged on prolonged antibiotics, and they saved my life. And I wake up every day grateful that I get to say, I am alive today. I am alive.